One. Welcome to Mountaineer Rants. Today's our preview edition for West Virginia versus Baylor, coming up on this coming Thursday. I'm Paul, and this is Terry.
How's it going, Ed?
Tell us about Baylor.
Well, Baylor, we're coming into this game. They're 3-2. They're 1-1 in the conference. They're just coming off of a loss to Oklahoma State at home. Baylor won the conference last year. Had one loss during the season during Oklahoma State, but they avenged that in the Big 12 championship game.
By beating Oklahoma State in the championship game and being the Big 12 champion.
Although Oklahoma State was on the 1 yard line and they stopped them at the end. However,
I got to always get that in.
Yeah, it was a really good game. So they're an elite team. Dave Aranda is their coach. He's done a really good job down there at Baylor, and he's done it in a way that I really enjoy because he has developed a team that's a really strong offensive line. In fact, some have said it might be one of the nation's best, their offensive line.
Very good offensively, very physical team.
Yeah. And they did it with defense last year, but they lost a lot of players.
They had 6 players go to the NFL draft last year, and they didn't fill them back up out of the transfer portal. They've got it. They're deep.
They are. They're a good team. They play well. They're one of the best teams in the conference, even though they're 5th place right now. I guess they're in the conference standings right as it is. But I think Baylor's a very, very good team, very well coached. They've got a different quarterback. Their quarterback last year was Gary Bohannon, and he left and went to the transfer portal. They've got a gentleman named Blake Shapen, number 12. Through 5 games this year, he's completed 69% of his passes.
He's solid.
He's 9 touchdowns. He has thrown 3 interceptions. He's only been sacked 10 times. That's only twice a game. So that's pretty strong. Again, that's a tribute to that offensive line. One of the things they want to do is run the football. There's no question about it.
Well, they've got the line to do it. They have the offensive line to do it. Last year, you may recall, if you're a Mountaineer fan, we came into their game against Baylor expecting them to run the football.
Right.
They came out throwing it and made fools of us because they got a couple of touchdowns ahead of us very quickly and threw us off balance. This year, we're worried because our defensive secondary ranks very poorly in the nation on pass defense. And even if you're not strong passing the ball, you got to look at our weak defensive secondary and be tempted to throw it. So look for them to run first, which is what they want to do.
That's what they want to do, yes.
But given our shredded secondary, we've lost our best cornerback in Woods. We may have at
least 2 others that are in concussion
protocols, and they weren't very good before they were injured. They were getting better.
One's not real good. One was just true freshman too.
Yeah.
So that's
one was Daniels. That's another story.
Running backs, they got a number 29 is their main guy, Richard Reese. He's run for 7 touchdowns this year, over 400 yards in their first 5 games. Averages 5.6 yards per carry. They got another gentleman named Craig Williams, 184 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4.6 yards per carry. He's the low man. Then you got Quaylen Jones, who's run it 29 times for 162 yards, another 5.6 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns. They are 7th in the country in rushing offense. So it's, again, like you say, they want to come in and big boy you and run it and pound it at you, but that's exactly, they switched up on us last year and really made us look stupid when we went down there last year. So we don't know what they're going to do.
Conventional wisdom would be this is going to be a possession game between them and West Virginia, with both sides trying to slow it down, run the ball, and out-physical the other. But again, we don't know that that's the strategy, because both of them are going to be tempted to throw it against secondaries that are questionable.
It's true, and when their best receiver, their receiver with the most receptions is their tight end, is Ben Sims, number 8. He's got 20 catches, 7 more than anybody else, including Presley, Baldwin, and Holmes, who all have at least 1 touchdown at least themselves. 13, 12, and 9 receptions respectively.
Galvin Holmes is talked about quite a bit, although Gavin Holmes as their receiver had several drops last week against Oklahoma State, and there was a lot of grousing about that. West Virginia is one of the worst teams for drops on our receivers, so we're not going to see NFL quality secondary and NFL quality receivers coming up.
It doesn't look that
We
way.
may see NFL quality running game and lines coming up.
Yeah, particularly offensive line. In fact, if you go back and look at their preview coming into this year, they did have the Big 12 Offensive Lineman of the Year. Connor Galvin is his name, and he was preseason All-American this year. In fact, their fans said stuff like they think they might have one of the best lines in the country. There was 4 of them that decided to come back that could have moved on. Galvin, Gall, Miller, and Keith are their names. So they're very, very good on the offensive line. However, when we did watch that game against Oklahoma State, they didn't dominate Oklahoma State's defense. And so
we don't know whether that's a function of Oklahoma State being very good or Baylor not being quite as good, but certainly they weren't dominant.
They weren't dominant. They didn't look like one of the best lines in the offensive lines in the country.
Their coach and some of the people on their boards have used the word energy, saying that they thought that the team lacked energy against Oklahoma State. That, well, some of them called it the violence was missing, the lack of swagger that they had last year, and they were good last year.
They were good
and their key players have gone to the NFL. Yeah. So maybe their young guys are not quite there yet. I'm glad we get them now and not later in the season if they develop.
Again, it's hard to look past that offensive line, and here's my worry: if that offensive line is as good as I think it can be, and can dominate our front 7 or front 6, however you say it nowadays, depending on the defense we play, then we got no chance in this game. They'll pound us and they'll beat us bad.
We're going to beat Baylor.
Well,
let's talk a little bit about more. Let's talk about Baylor was probably underrated at the beginning of the year for a team that was the conference champ.
Absolutely.
But nevertheless, when the season started, they were ranked 10th in the country, and they opened with Albany and beat the heck out of Albany 69-10. Albany's not a very good team. They're now 1-3. Then the next week, Baylor was ranked 9th in the country, and they played BYU. Well, they lost to BYU 26-20 in double overtime, and they missed a field goal in overtime. BYU scored, and they ended up losing in double overtime. They had 2 critical false start penalties. They had 2 missed field goals, and since then. BYU has ended up 4-1,
they're number 16 in the country right now.
I think they're scheduled to play Notre Dame.
Notre Dame this week.
Maybe they may have played it already by the time you see this.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, that dropped them from number 9 in the country to number 17 in the country, and when they played Texas State.
Who's that coach down there?
Texas State is being coached by a former quarterback coach for West Virginia.
Offensive coordinator too.
They're not very good. They're 2-3.
We just called him Homework because he always looked like that guy in schools, and we had homework.
He always looked baffled to me. Nice fella, but I
liked him. I root for him at Texas State.
Homework lost 42-7 to Baylor, and Baylor once again started to put up some scores. Now, in the BYU game, Baylor put up in the 4 quarters 0, 6, 7, 7, and 0 in overtime. So they're not lighting up the scoreboard. Against Texas State, they put up 7, 14, 7, and 14 against Texas State. So that was better. They didn't change their ranking. That week they were still 17 when they went to play Iowa State.
Yeah.
And they beat Iowa State 31-24.
Yes, 31-24.
Putting up 7, 10, 7, and 7 in that game. That's where Shapen threw for 238 yards. He was 19 for 26. Iowa State, by the way, is not looking very good.
I think we're going to find that Iowa State's not real.
They're 0-2 in the conference, and they're, I think, 3-2 overall. Baylor had 2 interceptions against Iowa State. So that jumped them from 17 in the nation up to 16 when they went to play Oklahoma State last week.
Campbell might want to grab that Nebraska job if they offer it to him.
There you go. They lost to Oklahoma State 36-25.
Yeah.
They scored 3.
We watched a good bit of that.
Nothing. 22 points in the third quarter and nothing in the fourth quarter. Oklahoma State is undefeated. But
That's good.
that game was marked with some strange things. For example, Oklahoma State was the first team then to get 100 yards or more rushing against Baylor this season.
Yep.
They got 166
They
rushing
ran it
against Baylor.
pretty well against them.
They were the first team to score 30 points on Baylor in 18 games, going back to 2020. So Baylor's defense was handled by them. Their special teams were embarrassed by Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State had a 98-yard kickoff return for a touchdown and another kickoff return that was a real long one that was midfield. Baylor didn't have a lot of penalties, so they're not going to help you there, but their special teams may be one of their weaknesses.
And Baylor only ran the ball for like 112 yards against Oklahoma State. So Oklahoma State, I mean, 112 is a good bit of yards, but effectively they could not control the game running the football. So they had to rely on trying to win that game on Shapen's arm and their passing game, and they weren't able to do it because Oklahoma State could outscore them. Oklahoma State's got a very good offense.
There are some youngsters on Baylor, and they do make some mistakes. In that game, they gave up a safety against Oklahoma State. That's horrible. It was on a slow-moving pitch play on their 2-yard line.
They were on their own too, and they ran a sweep. And I don't know.
Maybe you blame the coach for calling the play. I don't know.
But it was kind of a momentum changer. But did it cost them the game? I don't think so. But it was a momentum changer, that's for sure.
This is also the second or third time that they give up a touchdown right before half. So let's go ahead, Mountaineers, and put in one right before the end of that.
Well, we seem to kind of do that. He even did that against Texas. It didn't matter much in the second half, but we did that. And we did that against Virginia Tech. So let's have a bunch more earlier and then get one right before half too. How about that? I'll go with that.
I think the way we win this game is to control the ball and control the pace of the game, and that means running the ball. And I think we can, although remember, we've lost C.J. Donaldson, who's arguably our best running back.
Absolutely is our best running back.
And then if we're not able to run the ball well, we've got to catch the ball. We can't be dropping the passes. Their secondary is not that scary. We'll have more people open than we did against Texas. They're not as good as Texas in the secondary, but we've got to catch the ball and we've got to score. They don't score much, even against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, like I said, scored 7, 9, 17, and 3. While Baylor took the game off except for the third quarter. They had 22 points in the third quarter. They only had 3 points in the rest of the game. So, and Oklahoma State's not necessarily a defensive juggernaut. So we can hold them down if we can control their run and not make mistakes.
They've got a pretty daggone good defense. They've got a couple of guys. There's one guy, and forgive me if I mess his name up, Siaki, or Ika, but he goes by Apu Ika, who's their nose guard, maybe the best one in the Big 12 Conference. A defensive end named Chidi Agbayanaya, who's pretty good too.
An Irish lad?
Yes, yeah, I think you're right. But here's the thing about that. When you look at their stats, there is like 7 guys with 10 tackles or more. We don't have that. Not many teams have that. What that means to me is that they really run to the football. They don't count on one guy to make a tackle. Sometimes you get in games and teams that one guy he's got to make it. If he don't make it, nobody does. And they've got people that come and tackle.
And that's what we saw when we watched that game. Yep. Even when their secondary would leave somebody open, they would close quickly and hit you pretty hard. So they're quick and they'll attack you. And they may have youngsters in the secondary, but I thought they were aggressive. I don't know about this lack of energy or lack of killer instinct. I know their coach mentioned it twice. I know their boards mentioned it. If that's all that's keeping them from being the conference champion that they were last year, they're very capable of beating us. I don't think they do, though. I think West Virginia is a better team than their record shows. We got them at home. I don't think they ever beat us at home. I think our quarterback, and if we can keep it close, I think we can win it in the fourth quarter.
Well, all I'll say is that when it comes down, one thing that they're not very good at is special teams, and you'll find that now they did have Gavin Holmes took a punt back for a touchdown, and they're pretty good at that, but they're not good at returning kicks. But then again, neither are we returning kicks or returning punts. At least we catch it now.
Here's the second make or break game in a row for us because Texas had 2 losses. They had to win one. They were really feeling it. We got Texas's best shot.
We did.
Baylor's now lost to Oklahoma State, and that was their big clash from last year. This is a make or break game. This is a must win in their minds. I think we're going to get Baylor's best shot.
I think we have an advantage because they're coming in here believing they're going to kick our tails because they handled us so easy last year, and we don't look like such a good team after what we got beat by Texas. So
I hope so.
Maybe we'll catch this team not at their best on a Thursday night on TV, and maybe we'll play at one of our best.
I hope the spread is 12 or 15 points in their favor.
I doubt it's going to be that high.
That's the best thing that could happen to us so that they come in confident and we roll up our sleeves and get to work.
I'm going to say one last thing, and I know it's only about halfway through, but when I did the preseason thing, I said we would win our first 4 and then lose to Texas, other than Pittsburgh and Kansas. Which are games that were eminently winnable. I think we could have won both of those games, but a play or two cost us. We could be right there. I think we win this game with Baylor. I think that what happens is we come out with a lot of energy. We play really hard on the defense. We don't let them control the football. We're going to take some shots and get hurt on our secondary because they can throw it a little bit. But I think if we keep it close, we get it at the end. That's
what he's trying to say is if he had to predict it all over, he'd still predict that we'd be 4-1 right now. He'd still predict that we were going to beat both Kansas and Pitt.
I did.
And he'd still predict we're going to beat Baylor.
And I think we're going to beat Baylor.
And if I were putting money down, I probably wouldn't. I don't bet on the Mountaineers. I would give them a slight edge. Well, but I'm going on record as saying I think we beat Baylor. I think we beat them in the fourth quarter.
I had us at 8-4, and now we've lost 2 games that I thought we'd win, and now I got to pick up 2 wins somewhere, and I don't know where those are going to be. Maybe Iowa State.
The problem is when we beat Baylor, people are going to start saying how bad Baylor is instead of how good we are. So we've still got to beat a couple of more Texas teams we've got coming up in order to get ourselves settled.
Texas,
but I don't mind being an underdog.
I want to be an underdog.
I'd much rather they say we're the bottom of the conference. That works fine for me. We don't need a target on our back.
Get excited. Go out and see them on Thursday night. It's on ESPN. We're the only game out there. Let's cheer this team on and get a big upset win over the defending conference champion. Wouldn't that put a different spin on the whole season?
And I challenge you guys, if you know something that we don't, if you have a better opinion, put it down. Write it down in a comment and send it in to us. And if you're right and we're wrong, we'll mention your name the next time. We'll tell you that. It ain't going to happen because we know and you don't.
We had a really good comment from a Texas fan in our Texas preview, and thank you to you for watching, and we really do appreciate that.
And to the rest of you guys in Texas.
Don't forget, like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.
We look forward to it. Bye.